Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 95 of the Super Deformed Gamescast. 5 episodes away from episode 100. It's pretty fucking exciting. I'm pretty happy about this. Excuse me. I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Megative, a.k.a. John. You guys can find me on Twitter. I had that switched up. Should be John, a.k.a. Mr. Megative. My name is not actually Mr. Megative. I've got...
It is now.
It is now.
For you.
It is now, yeah. And we got a good crowd tonight. Finn is here in the car, and yes, Saki is with him.
You know, Saki's here.
Blessed Saki. Apparently, they take the fucking sock wherever they go, and I don't know how I feel about that. And Jeff is here trying to fix his mic. Brandon is the attractive woman you see there.
Yep, that's me.
Bleeding from the eyes. And we have 2 guests tonight. Mat Piscatella from MPD is making his monthly appearance to talk about sales and also some really interesting Battlefront 2 stuff. Dude, you know we love having you on, man.
Right on. Thanks. It's good to be here again. Holy crap, what a day.
Oh, my God. There's so much to talk about, man. There's so much to talk about. I can't wait to get started. And I also want to introduce, this is his first time on the podcast, Zach at Bear Claw Gaming. Really, really awesome guy. Why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself and where they can find you, man?
Yeah, sure. So again, thanks for having me, guys. It's really nice to be here. Yeah, so I just run a small game blog for fun and just kind of shit post on Twitter. But yeah, you can find my stuff at bearclawgaming.com or bearclawgaming at Twitter.
You are also a very, very, very big fixture in our Discord.
Yeah. I shit post there too all day.
You do, constantly.
Well, we do love that.
Yeah.
And if anybody else wants to get into our Discord, all you got to do is send me a DM on Twitter at Mr. Megative, and I will make sure that you get in. We got a lot of cool people talking in there. You might just run into some interesting folks in there as well. Who knows? Anyway, so a lot of cool shit to talk about tonight. And you know what, shit. Where do we start? Like, I mean, you've got MPD, you got the crazy shit going on Battlefront 2. You know what? I'm gonna let Matt choose. Matt, do you want to start with NPD? Not you. You're fed. Matt, do you want to start with NPD or do you want to start with Battlefront?
Oh, God. Battlefront 2 is just so insane what's going on this afternoon.
I did not see this coming.
No, you have to start there.
Yeah, me neither. I could not have anticipated this. So, yeah, you know what, dude? It's so interesting. Let's start there.
Let's do it.
Let's start there. So, we also got the Game Awards to talk about too. God, there's so much to talk about. So, if you're not on Twitter or you're not following gaming news as closely as you should be, and you're watching this podcast, everybody knows that Battlefront 2 launched with some, or it was going to launch. It hasn't completely fully launched yet, but it was going to launch with some very, very invasive loot boxes, microtransactions, like beyond your usual. Here's some weapon skins and character customization stuff. Like this was actual no bullshit pay to win stuff.
Your guns fire faster.
Yeah.
You do more damage. Your guns fire faster. It's things that give you legit one-ups on the competition.
And I can report to you, like I have not played the game because I refuse to, but my brother purchased Battlefront 2 and I talked to him before we went live and he said he has not paid for anything. He says you can absolutely tell the people who have. He said it is crystal clear who is paying to win online and who is not. And he was actually surprised at how stark the difference was. He was like, I was not. He was like, whatever, pay to win. I wasn't. He was like, but then you're playing online, and it is absolutely evident who's paying for who's paying for star cards and boosts and who isn't. So he stopped playing. So and he was like, yeah, he was a big problem for him. So
I mean,
now
in Call of Duty, it's always obvious like who's been climbing. Who the high level players in the lobby are because they have better gear. It's obvious.
Exactly.
So of course, it would be obvious here too.
But so, and then of course there's the progression, and I guess somebody had to work the math out, and I don't know how accurate it is, but I guess it would take you dozens of hours to unlock certain characters.
No, it was like 2,000 hours or some shit.
2,000 hours. So I see Matt shaking his head. Matt, how accurate was that?
Not very, but it doesn't matter. The message you got out there, and it would take a long time. Let's just put it that way.
So this
you would still be playing it when episode 9 comes out.
Exactly, yeah. And so this caused a huge stink on social media, and a lot of people were talking about it. A lot of people were very unhappy about it. Now I had heard rumors that pre-orders for Battlefront 2 were tracking well underneath, well behind what the first one did. And somebody who apparently knows something on Reset Era had hinted that sales for the game were tracking way below what EA was happy with. So, after several AMAs, EA released a statement today, and the rumors started swirling about, I would say, guys, like an hour before we went live. But EA released that, they were going to remove microtransactions for the game and everything would be progression-based. Well, right before we went live, EA made a statement, and it's not long. I'll read it right here, and then we'll dive into talking about it. EA says, "Thank you to everyone in our community for being the passionate fans that you are. Yeah. Our goal has always been to create the best possible game for all of you. Devoted Star Wars."
That's a new one.
I can't read this without just being cynical as hell. "Devoted Star Wars fans and game players alike. We've also had an ongoing commitment to constantly listen, tune, and evolve the experience as it grows. Although we wouldn't have done that had you not bitched and complained about it. You've seen this with both major adjustments and polish we have made over the past several weeks. But as we approach the worldwide launch, it is clear that many of you feel there are still challenges in the design. We've heard the concerns about potentially giving players unfair advantages, potentially. Yeah. And we've heard this is overshadowing an otherwise great game. This was never our intention. Sorry we didn't get this right. We hear you loud and clear, so we're turning off all in-game purchases. We will now spend more time listening, adjusting, balancing, and tuning. This means that the option to purchase crystals in the game is now offline, and all progression will be earned through gameplay. The ability to purchase crystals in-game will become available at a later date, only after we've made changes to the game. We'll share more details as we work through this." And then they tell us that we created a game that's built on your input, which is just about
that doesn't fix anything.
No, it sort of doesn't.
Everyone's pissed about the progression. It's the exact same. It's actually worse now because you can't even spend money to get stuff.
So Jeff, building off that, let's talk about they've got to tune the progression then in that case, right? They have to.
I'm hoping this is step one of them entirely rebuilding how progression works. But then what about people that have already spent money? It's a fucking mess. I don't know how they're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Especially when the game launches, it launches worldwide tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, the game has existed in, the Elite Trooper Deluxe Edition, which launched on Tuesday for $80.
I love these fucking games in the special editions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but
I think it's $79.99.
Yeah, something like that. And so it's been out there, right? And in theory, you would think people who are willing to spend $20 to get the game 3 days early might be the ones who buy your microtransactions too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
You'd think so.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and I would really love, I would love Matt to give his opinion on this. This is unprecedented. As far as this kind of backlash, I don't remember a game getting this kind of negative press right before release, or in the days and weeks leading up to release. And I
believe it set the record for the most downvoted Reddit comment in history.
The most downvoted
by far. The next closest was 2,400.
Good Lord. Jeff, Jeff, what was the number?
It was either 2,400 or 24,000, but this one was 300,000.
No, it's worse now. It's I think way past 500,000 now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I looked the other day. It's gotten really bad. Yeah. I mean, of course, but somebody highlights the fact that it's been downvoted, and then everybody goes and does it, and it's
and then what really matters is that CNN writes articles about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the only press that matters, is that you get this article on mainstream press talking about this very negative thing, and that's more what EA would respond to than a bunch of people on Twitter.
I don't think it was EA at all. I think it was either Disney or their shareholders who picked up the phone. Because this is Disney is extremely image conscious, right? They are extremely they're like, we are a family friendly company, blah 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 blah. And I have seen the words gambling thrown around on sites like CNN. And I'm starting to wonder if Disney saw that and was like, nope, especially not before our fucking crown jewel.
A month away.
Yeah, we're a month away from The Last Jedi. And we're talking about gambling in a Star Wars game? No, sir. That's no bueno. I don't know. Matt, what do you think, man?
So I can't speculate on exactly what happened there in the conversations. Obviously, it'd be very inappropriate. What I will say is that this is definitely not okay, while this is a very big deal in the terms of Star Wars Battlefront 2 and what's going on right now, loot crates aren't going away. Microtransaction or current spending is not going away.
Of course.
We are in very early days of how these kind of systems hit games outside of where they've been so far, which is mainly sports games. And it's going to take time for these systems to get worked out. Looking at a long picture perspective, I know everyone's very emotional and heated about it at the moment out there. Totally understand it. But these are some of the growing pains that an industry goes through as they try to figure out exactly how things work.
Well,
so
Matt, not to cut you off, but when you say how things work, like, are you talking like how far the line can be pushed?
Well, there's a balance there, right, between making money and making sure you're hopefully your consumers are happy, but at worst they're not angry, right? So
yeah.
You have to find a balance there, and part of that is sometimes things go too far, and sometimes things don't go far enough. And I think this is all part of it. Now, the positive thing is that in a world of like service games, which everyone likes to kind of be angry at the moment too, because they tie the two together. But in a world where everyone's connected, changes can happen very quickly, right? So adjustments can be made, things can be taken off, things can be brought on. So in the long run, this is probably a very good thing. We're learning about how all this works from a market perspective. But in the short term, whoa, there's a lot going on here.
So I imagine that either pre-orders or sales had to have been massively under tracking what EA was hoping for to make this kind of a change before the game even launched. Because you're talking about rebalancing the entire game, just like Jeff said. I mean, you have to rework the entire progression system.
It's probably only going to take him a couple weeks.
Well, so
the game launches tomorrow.
Microtransactions will be back in the game by the time The Last Jedi comes out. I guarantee that.
Oh yeah,
sure.
You don't think it's going to take him that long?
I think the difference here is that with this IP and the people involved and the size and scale we're talking about, there's a lot of things outside of just the game that probably come into play here. So
yeah, like we know from the game here. We know from Schreier's story about Visceral that like it's not just even EA and DICE. We know Disney and Lucasfilm actually have their hands in these stuff, and these sounds like the developers basically need to run everything by them. At least in terms of story, but I'm sure it extends beyond that too. Again, you talked about their image. I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah, which isn't unusual for a studio environment. I come from Warner. We had a number of agreements out there, and yeah, the IP holders are very involved. So who knows, right? I'm sure a book will be written someday because this is amazing, and I would love to read it. But of course, we're living it right now, so.
But I've never actually heard of anything like this before. Obviously, excuse me, people complain about games. I mean, people complained about like some of the microtransaction in Destiny 2, but not to this level. I wasn't reading stories on Time or CNN or Fox News about this stuff.
Right.
I just gotta wonder, like, what do you? And this is for everybody. I mean, what do you guys think this means going forward for this? I don't know, this kind of intrusive nature of pay to win model in console games. Do you think it's going to be a while before somebody tries something like this again, or do you think that somebody, maybe Ubisoft or
what I think is that what Activision did with Modern Warfare Remastered last year was they dropped it. It was microtransaction free, somewhat faithful to the original game, and then what was it? Maybe a month or 2 months later, they added all the cosmetic stuff that Call of Duty is known for these days back into that. So I feel like to avoid this initial backlash that because Battlefront is the big game of this week, so all eyes are on it. So they can surpass, the all eyes on phase, and then add the microtransactions in once people already bought the game and stuff.
So
I feel like that'll go over a lot smoother.
But one of the things that I'm sorry.
No, please go.
One of the things that I think is kind of interesting about this move, literally 3 hours before the game launches on wide scale, is that all of these articles on BBC and on CNN have already been published, kind of calling out all this controversy and kind of addressing the Disney gambling drama. But BBC and CNN probably aren't going to write a second story about them rolling back microtransactions like maybe IGN or GameSpot will. And so the core, part of the core demographic of this is parents buying this game for their kids going into the holiday season. I don't think they can regain the PR that they lost with some of these demographics, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually a really good point, Zach, and that kind of complements a question that Enrique, what's up, man? From Basement Radio, he asked in chat. He said, "Is the damage already done? Is this going to bring people back, or is it just too late now?"
It's not too late.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
I mean, the movie is so intrinsically tied to the biggest movie of the year.
Let's be clear. Like, it's still going to sell a lot of copies. Like, when we talk about the impact this is having, I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating how many people are pissed off, but if we're talking like it was going to sell 15 million, now it's going to sell 14,500,000
in a month when families go out to see The Last Jedi and they're all coming back in the car ride, they're all talking about it, and everyone's just Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
The microtransaction thing means absolutely nothing.
I mean, it's absolutely brilliant to release this thing on top of each, the Battlefront games on top of each Star Wars movie. I mean, it's
absolutely.
I mean, that's just marketing. That's marketing 101.
Yep.
And I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Like, yeah, I get the microtransactions will come back in some form. I mean, EA has already stated they will. I'm hoping they limit them to something like, cosmetics or some shit like that, or at least not the intrusive pay to win model that they had implemented. And I'll tell you what, I will probably go tomorrow and pick up the game. One, because I kind of have to, because I promised my son that I would, because like he's like me, but he loves Star. But me, I love Star Wars, and for what my brother was telling me, he was like, look, microtransactions aside, it plays better than Battlefront 1 did. Like, it's a better game. It's a good game, and it's beautiful. It sounds great. It plays well, and I don't want to pass up a good Star Wars game. I really don't.
Has anyone played single player? I mean,
I'm a little bit past halfway with single player. I probably put 15 hours into the game.
What do you think about that single player? I've heard mixed things.
It
doesn't bother me too much, just because I only was interested in the campaign mode anyway.
I mean, if you're buying this game for the campaign, you're buying it for the wrong reason.
Yeah, so
that's a rental right there.
I won't touch spoilers, but I would say absolutely Redbox it if you're only interested in campaign, because I think it's 5 hours. You can probably beat it in a Saturday afternoon. The story is
any longer than 5 hours. That's just
the
thing. It's welcome.
The story isn't great, and I think part of my criticism is I've probably played half of the campaign now, and I think 2 or 3 locations are straight up rips from the multiplayer maps, and they just have you in a segment of them like doing you literally are doing tower defense.
That doesn't surprise me.
And there is some interesting character writing, and I think I said this in the Discord earlier in the week, so a lot of people probably didn't see it, but this was written. One of the writers wrote Spec Ops: The Line, and this doesn't show it. Like, the character writing is very flat. I thought it was it's not a good campaign. The multiplayer is very good, and I would probably be tempted to disagree with your brother. I don't think it's obvious who's paying a lot of money. I haven't spent any money, and I do okay. But I think these changes are necessary. But no, don't pay $60 to play the campaign.
We know what's interesting, Zach, is that a few of us, I know I said it, and I know Jeff said it. It's like, we saw almost nothing of the campaign leading up to the game's release, right? Like they did not showcase it much, and I was like, and people were like, "Oh, I'm really excited about the campaign." I'm like, guys, I would curb your enthusiasm, because there's a reason we're not seeing a whole lot of this campaign. It's going to be rote and basically it's not going to be bad. It's just going to be completely inoffensive, and it's going to be. And from what I have heard about how the campaign plays out, it is exactly what you expect.
I think I compared it to like a Call of Duty, like an older Call of Duty campaign, like something you would expect from like 2014 Call of Duty.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and because I like Infinite Warfare's campaign, so I won't dog recent campaigns, but I just mean that like. Yeah, and the pacing is all over the place. I think there's I forget her last name, but Janina
Janina Gavin.
Yeah, her character, like she's a good actress, and her having a big name in it means that she could appear in a movie or a show later on, and it'd be fine. But yeah, no, it's a bit of a mess so far.
I'm sorry, Saki's fucking freaking me out right now.
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
Saki,
Saki.
Saki's just here to say hi to NPD Matt.
Hi.
Oh,
There's my girl.
Oh my god! Don't call it your girl. It's weird.
She's a girl. It's a sock. It's a girl.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Award-winning sock puppet that brings you fame and glory.
See?
How was this thing nominated for funniest gamer? I don't get it.
Because I'm delightful.
as much as I hate on Saki, there's like a really dark place in my heart for Saki. I will admit. Although I will say, if Saki wins that voting, that Anchorman is running on the Multiverse podcast, I will hop on the Saki train full force. And I won't get off. If you can do that, if you win, I will hop on the Saki train. I'm saying it right here.
I like it. Everyone can vote. But hey, John, on that note, I have to duck out. I just wanted to say bye real quick.
Okay, are you going to see Justice League?
Yep.
Yeah, we are.
Excellent.
Saki is actually in a Wonder Woman onesie right now.
Ha!
So,
Nice. Well, enjoy the movie, man.
I will. Bye.
All right, dude.
Good night.
So, let me ask you this. Was anybody here who was not planning on buying Battlefront? Has this changed anybody's mind?
Nope, I canceled my pre-order, and I had it pre-ordered for $40 Canadian, which is like 30 US.
And you're done. You're not going back.
I don't think so. Not until I'm convinced that the progression is fixed. Not until I'm convinced that they're not just doing the bare minimum to appease people and get sales, and not going to go right back to their shitty stuff. Like there was a long time ago. I can't remember what they did. They pulled some shit, and I just didn't buy EA games for 2 years. And then they got like a little bit better for 1 year. And now I'm just I think I'll sub to EA Access or whatever and play Titanfall 2. And then I think I'm just done for a little bit. I can live without EA.
I would be willing to bet that there is no way they're going to be able to fix the progression system by the time it releases tomorrow. I mean, that's just too much.
I want to play it. I can wait. I can wait till January, February, but I'm not going to buy it till I'm happy and think I can play. I only want to play at 2 hours a week, like one for every Friday night with my friends. And at that rate, I want to be able to actually use stuff in the game.
Can we just talk about that? And I'm happy these changes are happening because I like this game and I want to play this game with friends. But can we talk about that? This kind of feedback to this game happened last month during the beta. And they were like, we're going to address it for the final release.
Yep.
And then they didn't. And then they're seeing these pre-order numbers and they're seeing CNN and BBC talk about it. And now they're responding. So, and I don't want to say it's because gamers don't have a voice. But the fact of the matter is they weren't going to make these changes until they got negative press.
Of course not. Well, and so like, which is good in a way because it does mean that gamers do have a voice, and that game, if an unhappy public or an unhappy base can affect a positive change if they scream loud enough. But at the same token, let's not kid ourselves. This isn't out of the goodness of their hearts. I mean, they're not being altruistic and saying, you know what, we were wrong. We thought about this whole thing, and this is just completely fucked up. If people had bit on this hook, line, and sinker, and just just taking it. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We'd be talking about all the money we're going to pay in order to get some star cards in Battlefront. So which kind of taints it a little bit for me in the sense that they're only doing this because they got called out and they got called out hard enough. And even if they had still gotten called out, I don't believe that if this hadn't popped up on sites like the BBC and CNN at time, I still don't believe we would have seen anything like this happen. I think it's not just that people complained about it. It's that people complained about it to the point where major news networks were picking this up.
But maybe that's enough, right? Like maybe, let's say next year Battlefield, whatever they're going to call it, is coming out and they're looking to do a microtransaction system. Maybe they'll look back and say, look, whatever system we integrate, it could get reported in the news, and maybe let's not do you know what I'm saying? Like maybe negative press is enough. Maybe it doesn't have to be user backlash. Maybe it's the threat of the press. But then again, a game like Star Wars and integrated with Disney will probably get more press attention than just a Battlefield thing that nobody really cares about.
Well, let me ask
you.
Go ahead, Matt. Please.
That's all part of. I mean, that's all part of learning how these systems and how these things will work in games like this, right? And it's unfortunate, but I mean, these are the lessons you learn, and then next time you do something different. Because at the publisher level, and I worked in publishing for over a decade, almost 15 years. You know, there's people say, "Oh, you guys have think tanks and scientists and psychologists." I never saw one. Like we were just trying to figure it out as we went and taking market feedback and trying to make, decisions we thought would go over better or be more attractive. And, so like there's a lot of thought out there about how like there's these super scientists coming up with these formulas about how these companies go after some of this stuff. And sometimes, they just try ideas and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And then you change and you do something else.
So let me ask you guys one more question and then we'll move on to the NPD stuff and then we'll talk about the Game Awards. Do you guys think, and this is for everybody, do you guys think that this will deter companies in the future from going this hard in on something like basically a pay-to-win model? Okay.
I don't know if it'll deter them from going in that hard. I think it'll have them make sure that they figure their shit out before they actually put it live. I think they'll be a lot more careful and maybe kind of get feedback earlier in the process and more feedback during the betas and stuff like that. Not that EA didn't have a beta, but I feel like there'll be a different lead up to launch so that they have this figured out by the time it's at this stage. Because if anyone can get away with reversing this, it's EA and Star Wars. A game that isn't that beloved and that of that caliber franchise would be dead in the water. It doesn't matter if they go back on it a week later; it's too late.
So you think if this was any of the franchise but Star Wars, it would have been too late? It would have been
much.
Yeah.
My concern is kind of what you mentioned earlier, and I actually don't care. Maybe it's just because I don't play Call of Duty, so it doesn't bother me. But my concern is that their lesson learned will be: let's not do microtransactions at launch. Let's add them 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Which is what Call of Duty World War II is doing, and frankly, it probably won't get any press when it launches next week.
No,
why not?
Nobody's gonna care.
Yeah, and like
it already got all bad
lesson
press. I mean, there was already the whole people laughing about the loot boxes dropping on Normandy Beach shit. Like that already happened.
Which was so fucking ridiculous, by the way. Like it is ridiculous. I can't get over how there's actually a quest in Call of Duty, not to derail the conversation, but there's actually a quest in Call of Duty where you sit there and you open people watch loot boxes. Like I just can't fucking even at this.
The best was there was a GIF where they intercut it with Saving Private Ryan.
I saw that. It was cute.
I just want to take a half second to really keep derailing us. So I have that game on Xbox. The headquarters hasn't been populated in a week and a half. It's a ghost. They literally don't.
It's broken, isn't it? I heard it's not working properly.
Apparently they're gonna bring it back. But so right now it's the equivalent of being on the Destiny Tower, and all there is NPCs and no one else.
It's so bad.
Apparently on PC it's working, but it's glitched. People are just flying around.
Oh my god!
But on console it just doesn't exist, and it's oh man.
Aside from the loot boxes, I actually thought the headquarters was kind of a cool idea.
Sure,
it turns out that the thing that uses the most online interactivity should probably be in your beta. Probably.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
All right. Anyway, I don't mean to derail.
No, dude, you're good. No, this podcast is all about derailing and going off the rails.
Okay.
We love that stuff here. All right, I think we probably beat the Battlefront 2 horse enough.
A full half hour.
For about a half an hour. And now, Matt, why don't you give your little your NPD rundown, man? This is the good, because there's some interesting stuff going on this month.
Yeah, there is. So first of all, hardware is doing very well. I mean, Nintendo Switch and PS4. Switch has been the #1 hardware platform of the month in terms for I don't know, what is it, the last 4 months straight or something. But PS4 is still leading year to date. That should tell you that both are doing exceptionally well. And with One X coming this month, and apparently, shipments are bigger than I'd anticipated when I put my forecast number out there. It should all around be a really great month for November, December. But for October, Switch and PS4 both doing very well from hardware. That's great. On the software side, things get a lot more interesting. Overall revs were down, but that's really because Battlefield 1 launched last year, and Battlefield 1 was a massive launch. So it wasn't really that we're off just organically. It's off because, Battlefield 1 launched last year. So We have 3 games right at the top: Shadow of War, Assassin's Creed Origins, and Super Mario Odyssey. Odyssey and Origins only had 2 days in market. Shadow had a couple weeks. You take any of those 3 games, and any one of them could be first place, depending on how much you assume for, equalizing days in market or adding digital for Odyssey, which we don't cover. So really the takeaway there is all 3 games did exceptionally well, which is great. And then we go further down the list, and you have some other things pop up, such as Wolf 2 coming in the bottom part of the list.
Right next to the Evil Within 2.
So bad.
Yeah,
it's
and,
under Evil Within 2. It looks like.
Yeah, Evil Within 2 sold
surprising
more.
to me.
But
Yeah.
Evil Within 2 also had 2 more weeks on the market. So
Yeah, that's true.
True.
It is close, and there's no digital there. So if you add digital, it helps, but it doesn't take them top 10, probably. So you look at that, and then you look at some of the games that are lingering on the list, lower in the list, like Wildlands and Rainbow Six Siege. GTA 5's on the list.
I was gonna say, like, GTA 5 still outsold both of Bethesda's new releases.
Right. So you really get it's really hammered home that the model that a consumer looks at a game, they make an assessment now. How long can I play this game? How many hours of content? How endless is this opportunity? And they make buying decisions on that. I'm completely convinced that games that don't offer basically some form of unlimited play really have a limited sales potential going for them. So, which is a bummer. But when you look at a game like Origins or Shadow or Odyssey, and you go, wow, like these games, you can put tens and tens or maybe hundreds of hours into them. You can see why they'd be doing so well.
Oh, Mario Odyssey's so good. Oh, it's so fucking good.
So, Matt, I have a question for you. When I saw the list, one of the things that surprised me was how well South Park did. I mean, it obviously had a few weeks. Was that a surprise to you to see that do as well as it did?
It's not that far. It's not that different than what Stick of Truth did. So from a benchmark perspective, it's pretty close. That's good. I was actually expecting it to be off a little bit because it isn't a traditional service game with a ton of other stuff put into it. So I was a little bit surprised it did so well. Yeah.
And it's even more surprising that, if that game had come out, spring, I think these kind of sales would be expected. But to see it punching so high in October is to me was surprising. And yes, somebody in the Discord pointed out a little while earlier that Ubisoft has strong marketing, which is true. But that was the one thing I saw on that list that was genuinely surprising to me.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to be top 5, certainly, and it was. So, good for them. Ubisoft was the #1 publisher of the month. So between South Park, Assassin's Creed Origins, and then Wildlands and Siege holding on, For Honor is still in the top 10 list on a year-to-date basis.
That's fucking nuts, considering apparently nobody plays it anymore.
I haven't heard anyone say the words For Honor in 9 months.
Yeah, Ubisoft's games hold on. We're all in the core gamer bubble.
I just want to say congratulations, Marcel.
Yeah.
So if you look at the top 10 games, you look at on there and you see For Honor, Mario Kart 8, Horizon sticking around, Wildlands. These are these games that are just kind of hanging out. A little more evergreen.
Hey, Matt, can I pick your brain about the racing games, I guess? I think I'm probably the only person on the podcast who really plays a lot of racing games. I was surprised to see Forza and Gran Turismo hanging around at 10 and 11. I know racing's still huge in Europe, but it seems like racing, both as a spectator sport and as a gaming genre, seems to have kind of gone down in popularity in the States over the last few years. So I was kind of surprised to see these, right behind Destiny 2 and above some of the new releases in October. Is that surprising to you, or?
Yeah, so I mentioned in the analyst notes, so far in the year, racing game sales are up 37% year to date. They're doubled this October what they were last October. Now, there is some release count stuff. More racing games are coming out this year. And, of course, Mario Kart 8 will always kind of sway that. Anytime you get a Mario game, it makes things happen. But overall, racing and RPG games are doing very well this year. Shooters are off 20 points.
Man.
Even with Destiny, that's crazy.
Yeah, even with Destiny being the #1 game of the last 12 months.
So like think about so like and with Destiny selling that well, if shooters are still down that much, like imagine how poorly the rest of them are doing.
Is it just that there wasn't as many shooters releasing?
That's part of it. Absolutely. We had like last year there was a huge push of shooters. Like basically all you had was shooters.
I mean, wasn't it Call of Duty, Battlefield 1, and Titanfall 2 all within like 3 weeks of each other?
And then you had like Uncharted 4 that year.
Yeah.
Technically a shooter.
So a little bit of that. But
and Gears of War 4 as well.
Yeah, Gears of War 4.
Yeah, this year there's a better variety out there, I think, and it's being reflected in
And
the
Overwatch was last year.
Yeah. I mean, just a huge slate of shooters, but it's good to see more variety in the mix.
So,
go ahead.
No. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
The only thing that I thought was interesting, I think we talked about before we went live, was one, Forza beat out Gran Turismo, and obviously Gran Turismo had a little bit of controversy before launch, but not too much. And Forza, had a little bit of microtransaction talk around it because it also has a lot of loot box stuff. But to see Forza have at least half the install base or to see a game that has half the install base to PS4, I was surprised to see Gran Turismo punching a little lower than Forza.
Yeah, and Forza is actually missing some of its sales. The Ultimate Edition actually came out in September.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Interesting.
It would have done actually a little bit better. No, so, and I know like people out there are going to hate it, but if I hear a game has loot boxes or has service components like that or MTX, I'm automatically assuming that it's going to sell better because consumers are reacting positively to those kind of. Now, I don't know if it's positively to the mechanic or positively to the idea that this game is big and more unlimited and it conveys
the idea that they'll be playing it in March of next year, for example.
Right, and I don't know which is the causal and which is just the correlator. But yeah, so not super surprised. Plus, GT has been kind of on a downward trajectory for a while, and Forza with Horizon seems to be pretty strong as a brand. I don't know if that's true, but that's just my read.
I think Microsoft pushed it a little bit harder, it feels like to me, than Sony did with Gran Turismo.
Well, and Microsoft had to, right?
Yeah, I guess, because what else are they pushing, right, with their big Xbox One X? It's Shadow of War and Forza 7, whereas...
Super Lucky Tale demands to be taken seriously.
So here's probably for me, anyway, and probably for most people here, the most unfortunate takeaway from the NPD. Like I am really glad. I'm really glad AC Origins is doing well, right? Like like at the end of the day, like it started off good for me, but I really hated the combat in that game, and if a game doesn't have good combat, I can't stick with it. But I am glad it's selling well, because I do think it's an improvement over past iterations of the series, and I'm thrilled that Mario Odyssey is doing well because right now it's my front runner for Game of the Year. I've got about 70 hours in it, I think, so far. I still haven't found all the moons, and at the opposite end of the spectrum, Wolfenstein 2 is in the discussion, is in my personal Game of the Year category, and that just kind of hit with a wet thud. And I was hoping it would sell better, not just because it's an amazing game, but also because with everything going on right now in America, with with the alt-right, and those pieces of shit, like it is culturally relevant, I think, in a way that it wouldn't have been even just a year ago.
As depressing as it sounds, I think like to people like you and I mean, I'm in total agreement with you, but I think so many Americans, especially are so complacent, that the whole anti alt-right ad campaign probably doesn't resonate with a lot of people, which
most people
is unfortunate.
Still don't know what the word alt-right is.
Yeah.
Outside the internet.
Well, I mean, before we go down that terrible rabbit hole. So I think what we're seeing, so games like this, right? Primarily single player linear experiences that are 10 to 14, 15 hours. Day one is becoming less and less important in terms of the life of product sell through. By life of product, I mean 2 years or 3 years or whatever you want to put as the ultimate on a title. I think folks are trained now to, if they don't need to play right away or they don't think the story is going to be spoiled, they're going to wait for a digital discount. They're going to wait for Games with Gold or PS Plus. They're going to wait for sales around Christmas time. I think like a game like Wolf is going to have a very solid tail. And in a year or two, we're going to look back and, There's going to be another one out there, and you look at the life of product sales, and you go, oh, okay, they made it all up. Like a few years ago, it used to be where if a game had a bad day one, it was dead. That's just not how things work anymore. Pre-orders and even day one sales are not indicative of life of product sales performance like they used to be.
That's healthy for the industry. I didn't like the reliance on like week one sales.
Well, and one of the things
much different now.
And one of the things I saw was, and I don't know if PlayStation is going to match it. I know that they're having a Black Friday sale, but I saw digitally you can get both Evil Within and Wolfenstein 2 for $30 digitally. Yeah. And like a digital sale that steep, literally 2 weeks or a month in the case of Evil Within 2 is pretty rare. I think it was the oh god, somebody from Remedy once said that they don't make a ton of money when they sell games under steep discount. Is that totally true?
No.
Okay, yeah, he implied, and this is a tweet, and maybe there was greater context, but I remember reading it a while ago, and he's like, we make the bulk, and I'm sure he's right, that they do make a way larger amount of money when somebody buys it at $60 compared to $30. Yeah.
Sure, because you amortize your development costs and your other costs equally over the life of the product. So most, like your highest margin happens at $60, but you're still making money when it's 20.
Sure.
The whole issue, so we're going to get really in the weeds here, but I love it. The whole issue is
it's cool. Let's do it.
That's why you're here, man.
It's based on incremental sell-through, right? What that means is base sell-through being that base level consumer demand that's driven by your things like your average price and your distribution and your normal marketing. Then you have your incremental that's driven all by the promotion and the extra advertisement and all that discounting, right? If you discount your game at the right time, and the right time is between Black Friday and Christmas, you can drive more incremental lift on that sale to more than offset the reduction in price. If you do a steep discount deal in August, you're losing money. If you do a steep discount sale second week of December, you're making money. And if you're doing it the week of Black Friday, holy crap, you're getting 10, 20x lifts, like you're swimming in it. Like, of course you do it. And it has no impact to your baseline demand after the promotion's over. The fact that more companies don't do this makes me think they're not looking at the data. And the companies like Ubisoft and Warner and those cats that do these kind of deals are looking at the data and they know what they're doing. So sorry to sidetrack.
No. Well, and I didn't. And I first of all, I should be clear. I read that tweet. And there's probably some greater context to what he was talking about, especially because Quantum Break definitely struggled a lot.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, definitely. But seeing something, I mean, Bethesda has just had a rough fucking year as far as moving games. Yeah. As far as moving games, and I'm really hoping that people will see Evil Within, and Death of the Outsider, and Wolfenstein 2 on these steep discounts, and maybe jump on them. They're good games.
Zach, it's not just this year either, man. Like, I mean, Dishonored 2 performed below, as well. And I mean, there are other games I can't think of right now, but Death of the Outsider underperformed.
Yep. But this is what we were talking about earlier, though. Like, Dishonored 2 came out in like mid to late November, like at the tail end of game season. Death of the Outsider came out in September. Evil Within came out in October, which kind of fits that Halloween spooky theme that some people get into. And Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein got to ride some of that alt-right media press from the time, but like there's no reason that like some of those games felt like they got sent out to die against some of these big.
I was just going to say, like, I love Bethesda games, and I wanted Dishonored 2. I wanted Death of the Outsider. I wanted Wolfenstein. I love the first Wolfenstein, but they released them at shitty times. Like, I could only afford 2 games in October. I got Assassin's Creed and Mario. My third one would have been Wolfenstein, but the money's just not, like, you release it on the same day. It's hard. So no matter how good your game is.
Well, and like, Bethesda isn't the only company that's guilty of this. I mean, look at what Respawn did to Titanfall 2.
The same day as Fallout 4.
That was so I mean, good. Yeah, and here's the thing: like, these aren't shit games. Like, every one of these games is fantastic, and they're being sent out to die. Meanwhile, you've got games. I mean, like the Evil Within 2. Like, it's not for everybody. I loved it personally because I love I love Mikami games. But the Evil Within, until Dying Light came out, was the highest selling new horror IP in years, and that series had a very bright future. And now look at it. Yeah. Meanwhile, Dying Light came out in fucking January, which honestly, and it killed it. Which honestly, that's when the Evil Within 2 or Wolfenstein 2 should have come out. Was
and
January,
then there's Resident
February.
Evil, which followed in its path and kind of struggled. But also, it came off of Resident Evil 6, which sucked, but also sold really well.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I would say. I mean, I honestly, I would say a lot of that was due to just people being upset at Resident Evil 6 and reluctant to jump back into the series. But like these games are being sent up to die. And Matt, I was wondering if you could give any insight as to what these companies are thinking behind these publishing dates. Because if I was working at Bethesda, I wouldn't want fucking The Evil Within 2 or Wolfenstein 2 anywhere near the holiday season. Like, I mean, these are summer or January games. I just don't get it.
So, obviously, I can't speculate on these precise examples. I just know, working from my own experience, there are many factors at play that comes to picking a release date. You have your ideal release date. You have your release date that's determined by your physical calendar. You have your release date that's determined by sometimes executive bonuses. You have your release dates that can be determined by the development schedule. Very, very rarely does a game come out at the exact time that you originally envisioned it to when you greenlight it. Things happen. Games are really hard to make, and things go off the rails. So who knows? But no release date is one that anyone really wants initially, except for the huge games like a Call of Duty that has its date locked. It's always a question of what circumstances come together to give you the date you have.
I thought of the other one, Prey.
Yeah, Prey did well. I mean, Prey did better than Wolfenstein, though.
Well, but Prey is still an interesting choice where, like, it came out in May. I can't think of any other big games around it, and it still struggled.
So that was an anomaly, right? Like Prey, but it wasn't for me, but I understand it was a good game that I just didn't care for. I'm not going to sit here and say it was garbage because it wasn't. But that was one that people seemed really excited about, and I was really expecting to perform better than it did. And
I think Prey is a tougher one. I feel like Wolfenstein and Evil Within are more straightforward to market. Like Wolfenstein, it's like fucking shoot Nazis. Evil Within, it's like horror game. You've got your audiences, and for Prey, even the way they market it, it's like you can you explore and you can control these objects. Like it's a little bit. I mean, the hardcore gamers I think were interested in it, but when you're throwing up TV spots or trailers at E3 and stuff like that, I think I was talking about this on Twitter a while ago. I think I know people hate when things are deceptively marketed, but if they had just marketed it as like a space shooter, just more straightforward action, or kind of given a clear message as to what the game is, I think it might have done a little bit better, just because I think there's a big audience out there that just didn't really know what the game was. But that's just speculation on my part.
And Prey is such an interesting game, and like you're saying, I think it does resonate and probably did do well with quote unquote hardcore gamers. And I think it's going to be a game that people are going to talk about for a long time. I think it will have the legs of a BioShock and of a System Shock as far as mechanics that will be lifted, because it did lift a lot of stuff too. But I think I remember seeing trailers for it and thinking this isn't anything like the demo that they released, and this isn't. And it's also interesting too because it was a long. If you wanted it to be, it was a long game.
I heard
40 hours.
You could stretch that thing out to about 40 hours if you wanted to.
And speaking of the demo, that was a bad demo. I didn't play it, but just hearing the part of the game the early part of the game is so bad. You have no abilities, no weapons, and you're just hitting these fucking little mimics with a wrench. That is not a good.
Yeah, it's almost like to really understand what Prey is. I think you need to give it 5 hours, and they did the first hour, and it's by the way, it's 1 year week, and we're gonna release, and it's gonna contain a big plot twist, and the plot twist is cool, but if your gameplay isn't engrossing in your first hour, then maybe don't expect sales.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that turned me off of the game, was trying to hit the little mimics with a wrench, which was just an exercise in frustration I was not willing to cope with. But I just want to say that Wolfenstein 2 has got to be the disappointment of the year for me. I thought that was a sure thing. Killing Nazis and fucking the game is just so good. I could not be more disappointed in how it was received. By the it didn't go as well. It didn't do as well as maybe I expected, but I didn't think it was going to do great. I don't know. Matt, do you have anything else you want to talk about on the NPDs? I actually do have a question, Matt. Actually, about the NPDs. How does this October compare to last October?
So outside of Battlefield 1, I think it's a really strong October month, following up last month, which was one of the best Septembers in history. So in terms of momentum going into November, December, it's fantastic. The fact we have 3 hardware platforms that are all that should all do very well and all have things going for them is encouraging. And we have some of the best games ever made come out this year, and what's one of the best years for gaming
in 10 years.
Yeah. So I think it's great. And I mean, hell, man, look at the digital sales that Microsoft has today, starting today, and the one that Sony's got going tomorrow for PS Plus members. You look at those digital sales as well, and the retail sales. I think, man, this is a great holiday for gaming from a sales perspective. So I'm really encouraged. First time in a while, I think we've had a lot to be excited about for everybody.
Plus, man, I mean, dude, look at the Xbox One X, man. Like Microsoft is going to have a strong November.
I got to tell you, I haven't played on an Xbox One in 2 years. I love that thing. I think it's the best console I've ever played on. And
I've heard it's nice, man.
I wasn't expecting to feel that way. So, yeah, I think everyone's got some really strong momentum going into the tail of the year. So, hell, man, good stuff all around. People hope people really enjoy the games. I think the last point I'd have on what we're seeing in the data the last few months is there's a lot of conversation in the core gaming community about what they want in terms of single player games. They're not showing it, at least the data's not reflecting that want. So there's 2 things going on. One, the mass market is much bigger than the core gaming market thinks it is.
Yes, it is.
And if so, I would expect as a core gamer for that mass market customer to be catered to more. So if you want these games to do well, you have to do more than just talk about them as an audience, as a consumer base. And I know it's crappy, and I know like voting with your wallet is like something that people like to mock now. But I mean, companies look at these rankings and they make decisions on what kind of games they're going to make and what they're going to go after. And right now, I mean, it's really clear what kind of games are doing very well.
It's extraordinarily clear. Open world games with lots of microtransactions.
Well, and speaking of speaking of games, let's you guys want to talk about the Game Awards?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple things. Yeah.
I would actually really like to talk about the Game Awards. And Matt, dude, thanks so much for the MPD rundown, man. You always do a fantastic job, man.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
No, dude, we just love having you on. The MPD stuff is a bonus. So Jeff Keighley announced the nominees for the Game Awards 2017. Okay,
pretty expectable list.
Yeah,
nothing crazy there.
The thing about 2017 is like you could up it to 10 nominees instead of 5, and there'd still be great games left off.
Really good.
Yeah.
I don't agree with a lot of the nominations, but when I look at how people feel about those games, I'm like, well, I can't really be mad because everyone fucking loved those games.
Yep.
Like,
absolutely.
It's tough.
So like there were a few surprises on here for me. We'll start, we won't go over every category, but I do want to go over some of the more interesting ones. And the one that jumps out at me first was Best Family Game. For the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of the genre or platform. And the nominee for
gonna win that one.
So here's my thing with that, right? So like the nominees are Splatoon 2, Sonic Mania, Mario plus Rabbids, Mario Kart 8, and Super Mario Odyssey. Mario plus Rabbids is fucking hard.
Yeah, that won't win.
And I don't. Game. It's one of my game. It's one of my favorite games this year. But that game is fucking difficult, and I'm having a hard time understanding how that is a family game because my son, who loves games just like I do, he's 9 years old. He played Mario plus Rabbids for about 10. He loves Mario. He played the game for about 10 minutes, and he was like, "I can't do this." He was like, "I can't, Dad, I can't do this." And I am having a hard time understanding how that is a family game.
You got to teach him the hard way. You got to give him XCOM first.
I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like Mario plus Rabbids, of course it's Mario. But when you play it, you're like, this is not a family game.
What else do you put there though? Like there's so few family games coming out these days. You put Super Lucky. Yeah, put PUBG in there. Fine, kid, do it.
The thing is And I'm pretty biased. I don't love Odyssey as much as everyone else does, but like when you look at that list, like they're all good games. But Odyssey is gonna win.
Odyssey is
right?
absolutely.
I think Mario Kart 8 is a good game, but it's a re-release. Splatoon 2 is okay. Sonic Mania is a really good game, but also might be hard. Like I had a hard time with Sonic Mania.
I so did.
Like, yeah, no, Odyssey's gonna crush.
But I don't know, like a lot of times, I don't know how they'll do it with the Game Awards, but like for example with the Oscars, like the decisions aren't always just on the merits of the games. It's very like they might decide, okay, we're giving Game of the Year to Odyssey, so they might throw another one of those games in Family Game a bone just so that it depends how they want.
All voting based, isn't it? All based on how people vote.
No, I think they have a panel of judges. You're just voting for like the users pick.
Oh,
but I'm pretty sure they actually have a panel.
Is only for nominees, but maybe I might be misunderstanding.
I could be wrong.
Okay.
So the next category I want to talk about is one that I think is going to be extremely competitive, and that's best role-playing game. And the nominees for that are South Park, Final Fantasy 15, Divinity, Original Sin 2, Nier Automata, and Persona 5. And I don't think South Park's going to take it.
No.
Which brings it down to Final Fantasy 15, Divinity, Nier, and I don't think Nier is going to take it. So I would say either Final Fantasy, Divinity, or Persona could all win.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Divinity probably will get it, but like honestly, the thing is like Persona 5 was huge, especially when it released. But I'm trying to think of how that game sold, and like it might be one of those games that's like huge amongst the people who like that game.
It sold well. I mean, for a Persona game, like it was the highest selling Persona game. Which Persona games, I mean, they don't, it's not going to sell like Call of Duty, but it sold like almost 2 million copies, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, but like it sold well, but like I think what Zach's saying is like it doesn't feel like it's still part of the conversation. I guess it feels like a lot of people bought it and loved it, but it didn't really have legs or word beyond that circle.
That's an interesting point.
I think the thing I've heard the most about, right, is Final Fantasy. I mean, that game has been talked about much.
Because they're still updating it, and and the multiplayer just came out. There's more DLC coming out. And the multiplayer is pretty damn good, by the way. It's fun. It's not something I'm going to be playing a year from now, but it's enjoyable. But yeah, Final Fantasy 15 is still in the conversation. I would like to see that win because that was my game of the year last year. I really loved it. But the thing about Persona 5 for me is I mean, like, this is going to sound a little hypocritical to say because I put 130 something odd hours into Final Fantasy 15, but Persona 5 it's not that it was too long. It's a really long game, but it's not that it was too long. It was that there were huge empty spaces where just nothing was happening. And to me, it just ruined the pacing of the game. And I had a hard time understanding where all the positivity, like the battle system is great, the characters are great. It's the most stylish game I've ever played.
Waifus.
But yeah, it's the waifus. But like there was 20, 30 minutes at a time where you're doing nothing but watching cutscenes, and I was just like, I can't.
But people really like those cutscenes. Like they like those characters, and that's.
Some of them do.
And I always feel terrible about it because like to me, I've never played a Yakuza game. I've never played, and I have a PS4, but it's like my Naughty Dog machine, and I feel really bad saying that because like it feels like I'm only supporting one type of developer.
That's what my PS3 was.
Yeah. And like, but like I want to play games like Yakuza, and I want to play Persona, and I want to play Nier, but like I just don't trust myself to like. I don't know if I can do cutscenes like that, and I definitely don't think I can do character design like that.
Well, I'll say this much: it's nothing as egregious as you're going to find like a Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah,
it's nothing like that where you're watching like hour-long fucking cutscenes. But I do felt like it broke up the pace of the game a little bit. But yeah, so those are the nominees for role-playing game. Best action adventure game. So this is interesting, and I can already tell you what's going to win. But so you got Uncharted Lost Legacy, which is interesting because it's an expansion. It's not a full game, although I guess you could call it a full game. Assassin's Creed Origins, Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Let's face it, it's going to be Zelda.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any argument there. Best adventure game, it's Zelda.
Yep.
Even if you didn't like the game, like you cannot deny that Zelda's going to win that.
Yep. Yeah, well, and a lot of the time, like, right, so people who like Assassin's Creed probably like Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's going to split your vote. Uncharted is popular amongst core people, but like Zelda and Odyssey are like mean, they're a cultural, like, and that feels like really stupid and cheesy to say that way, but like it's a cultural experience. Like everybody, you know, it's like Pokemon Go. Everyone's playing it.
So Jeff, you were the one who reviewed Lost Legacy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you gave it like an 8 out of 10. I remember reading Jeff's review, and I agreed with everything he said. Specifically talking about things like the villain, I felt like that was the weakest villain in the series. Especially coming off something like Nadine Ross or Rafe. It was good. It was good for what it was. I don't see Horizon Zero Dawn taking it, even though that's a fantastic game. Jeff, you really like Assassin's Creed Origins.
I love Assassin's Creed Origins. It's not on the same tier as some of those because it has problems. But it's, I don't know, it's just scratching a certain itch. But I liked Watch Dogs 2 a lot. I seem to be a sucker for Ubisoft's open worlds lately. But I think, yeah, like you guys said, Zelda and Mario is kind of in that upper tier. But I feel like Horizon's up there, and I still agree with you that Zelda or Mario would probably win. I feel like it might be closer. I could see, again, I want someone to clarify for me how the Game Awards work, because I was under the impression, because I was listening to Easy Allies podcast, and they mentioned they are having, like, they're providing a vote for the Game of the Year pick, but they're only one part. There's lots of other publications that are providing votes. So I thought that the jury was actually choosing. But anyways, I feel like there is people out there who might vote for Horizon. I can't see Assassin's Creed being given a vote when those other games exist, though. And the same for Lost Legacy. I think Lost Legacy as a whole package is probably like the leanest, tightest, best playing Uncharted game, but it just doesn't stand a chance against those other ones.
I agree with you. I gotta agree. Brandon, you got anything you want to add, Ben?
Not really, except I was looking at chat. So good luck to Matt with his Final Fantasy adventure there.
I know I'm gonna hate it.
You probably are gonna hate it. It's okay if you do. It's okay.
I know I will. It's amusing.
I mean, like Final Fantasy 15 isn't even like it's an action RPG.
Yeah, it's an action RPG.
And so, Matt, since I think you and I are the only ones here who own an X, when I see this sale, like, I'm looking at these games and I'm like, well, if it's X enhanced, it's more of a, like, you know what I mean?
I'm buying all of them.
Right. Like I've never played a Final Fantasy, but it's enhanced for the new Xbox, and like $50. Like tempting.
So, I know we're kind of sidetracked, but I've been blown away by how good X360 games look, how good Xbox original games look. Like every game that's enhanced, I'm just like, my eyes are. I have a Titan X in my PC, yet I'm playing these games on my TV downstairs, going like, "Oh my god, this is beautiful." I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad you guys are enjoying it.
I am going to once again carry this sidetrack. One of the things, and I think you guys have talked about it before too, is the X is absolutely a console aimed at people who already are invested in the ecosystem. But I think if the Xbox team keeps doing updates that they're doing for 360 back compat games, where they're significantly improving the visuals of them, you will get people who bought Xbox 360 who went PS4 this generation to maybe come back. Because I mean, like, Halo 3 looks insane. And maybe that's just speculation as somebody who's really heavily invested in that ecosystem at this point. But
and that's the thing, Zach, is that, like, I'm so invested in the PS4 ecosystem at this point. Like, all my trophies are there, all my friends are there.
Yeah, but John. Geometry Wars.
Geometry Wars.
One of the really smart things Microsoft did is, like, they're am I wrong? Are they packaging 360 games now, but they're like Xbox One, Xbox 360?
Yeah, they're bundled together.
Smart.
It just gives you that larger library. You go in a store and you're like, fuck, look at all these Xbox One games, even if it's not originally made for the Xbox One. It's just that much more value, more stuff they can play on the system.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna get into my shill territory. Like, if you look at some of the Digital Foundry stuff that they've done, comparing 360 games that are now working on X that have like the X specific enhancements, it's wild looking at games like Assassin's Creed and Fallout, and
most of them look better than what the remasters that these companies are putting out for $60.
Oh yeah. Like Gears of War 3 was one that when they initially were like, we're gonna enhance that one, I was like, that seems weird because that game is kind of already an okay looking game, and then you see how they did it, and it looks like what was that, Gears of War Ultimate Edition.
I'll tell you, I fired up Dead Space yesterday. It looks like a game that could have came out today.
Wow. And that hasn't
I'm
even been
amazed.
patched, right?
I'm amazed by the damn thing. I'm. Anyway, sorry. Didn't mean
No,
to say
yeah.
that.
No. Matt, you're familiar with the format here. We go all over the place.
I know. I'm just so geeked up about this thing, and I didn't want to buy it. Like I hated myself buying it, but I felt like I had to just for the job. And now I'm like, holy crap! This is probably the coolest thing I've bought in 10 years.
But now
I hate myself.
Now here's the thing, though, right? Like it it doesn't fix any of their problems, like at all, like first party wise.
Yeah.
But it's again like as somebody who's like invested and who had a 360 for a decade or however long, it feels really good. Like it feels so good, and like it feels good to be happy about it. But again, like, and I think John has been really vocal about this, and I think he's right. Is like it's not going to bring anybody back. It's not going to convince anybody. But like to somebody like you and I who is like, hey, I'll replay the 360 game. Like this is dope.
No, I know, like I know how it feels. Like when I don't upgrade very often, but like I play a lot of stuff on my computer. When I got my new graphics card a couple years ago, the first thing I do is download all these old games that I couldn't run well before.
Yeah.
And then it feels like a brand new experience. You're like cranking up the resolution, getting like 150 frames a second, and it's just there's so many games that came out, especially the 360 PS3 generation, that were just handcuffed by that hardware and weren't done justice, which is why it was so frustrating to me to see people bitch about remasters. I'm like, these games like were played half-assed. Like I know, a good game's a good game, right? Graphics aren't everything. But there is an art team that put a lot of work into these assets and this visual design, and to have it played at such low resolutions at 20 frames a second is just doing it a disservice. So it's great that whether it's a package remaster or the Xbox One X like native upgrades, that people are finally getting to see these games the way they should have been seen. Well,
and that's one thing that I feel like Microsoft has done far better than Sony is the whole deal with backwards compatibility, especially on the X, right? Like here's a great. I'm glad you guys mentioned that because here's a great example. Right now, well, not right now, but right now I'm playing through Ni no Kuni for the second time on PS Now, right? I love Ni no Kuni. And if you've never played Ni no Kuni, if you don't like JRPGs, it's not going to convince you. But like it's the artwork is all done by Studio Ghibli, so it is a fucking beautiful game. And on PS Now, it's running like at 720p, and there's just a little bit of latency because I'm streaming the game. And all the while, I'm thinking to myself, I would just love to put my Ni no Kuni disc into my PS4 and play it at 1080p with no latency at all at 60 frames a second. Like I would love that, and it's fucking irritating that I can't. It's irritating as shit that I can't do that.
Yeah, and what's so wild about that? And so I have to ask you, and this is again sidetrack. Are you a monthly subscriber to PlayStation Now, or do you just do it every time you have a hankering for a game?
Every time I have a hankering for it, then I cancel it.
I was gonna say like it's probably not something worth it on a monthly
No, it's not. It's not. But I was like, I didn't know Ni no Kuni was on there, and I was like, oh shit! And so I've got my subscription until I'm done, and then that's done. I want to get back on the Game Awards.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's how we do it here. And I want to talk about best action game because I feel like this could go a bunch of different ways. So you've got Prey, Neo, Destiny 2, Cuphead, and Wolfenstein 2.
Destiny 2 will win. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think it'll win.
I don't think it'll win.
Oh, okay.
I don't. I think. I hope that is a Wolfenstein 2 win.
I feel like it is. Prey in an action game.
Look at those sales, man. I mean, sales. Like, again, I guess I think we're all a little confused on how the voting works. If it is based purely on like the individual, all of us going and voting, then I think games like Prey and Wolfenstein 2, while excellent, won't get those votes. But if it's done by critics, then yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's the game I want to win. Like maybe because it's not selling as well as it should be. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying this, and I think Brandon will probably agree with me that I don't think the gameplay is quite as nailed down tight as it was in the first game. Actually,
not quite. I mean, the mechanics are, but it's like things like level and encounter design aren't quite up to this.
Well, there's some questionable encounter design in Wolfenstein 2, and the best example, Brandon, we've talked about this, is the courtrum level.
Yeah,
which is
that took me 20 tries.
Awful fucking level.
And in the context,
is it awful? Like I eventually figured out a strategy that would work consistently.
So did I, but like I basically had to cheese it for.
Well, what's so frustrating about that, and avoiding spoilers because obviously no one's played it outside of this group, is the context in which that scene takes place. It doesn't really make sense that it's as hard as it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But I mean, that's beside the point. I would love to see Wolfenstein 2 win. I don't think it would cause a surge in sales or anything. But I would love to see Wolfenstein 2 win something. But yeah, I mean, that'll be an interesting one. The thing is that Destiny is so tremendously popular. And it's a good game. I don't know if I would vote for it. In fact, I don't think I did when I voted the other day. I mean, Neo and Cuphead are probably both very good games, but like, no, they're not going to win.
Well, I don't think Cuphead has the mass appeal that something like a first person shooter would have, because Cuphead
already has 2 categories it's guaranteed for: best indie game and best art style.
So I just looked it up. There is a voting jury. It's 51 global media outlets that will have ballots. So I'm only bringing that up because when we're talking about exposure and sales, I think it's safe to say that these media outlets will be sending people that cover a lot of games. Chances are they probably played or are familiar with most of them, so I don't think it's big an issue as if we're talking about the fan vote.
Right, yeah. Critics have played Prey and critics have played Wolfenstein. It's the core gamer who hasn't. So, yeah.
Guys, not to derail, but I guess there's some breaking news in the chat related to Battlefront 2. VentureBeat is reporting that Disney CEO Bob Iger spoke to EA's Andrew Wilson earlier today via telephone.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Wow.
Because the headline on CNN was not like Battlefront or gamers angry at DICE game battle. It was like Star Wars game under attack. Yeah. It was just Star Wars. So
I am willing to bet Disney. This is a Disney thing.
And
that's what it seems
maybe
like.
I overreacted to it in the Discord, but I just like Disney knew these practices were in play. Like you know what I mean? Like it's not like
I don't think it's about the practices. I think it's about the press.
Right. I mean, and Disney tried to pull some shit a couple weeks ago with the LA Times, and then they got backlash, and they immediately were like, "Okay, you're right." And I think I get it. That's how businesses work. I didn't like the idea. Everyone wants to do good guy Disney, and like it's not.
No, they're not.
That's
good
not.
guy Disney.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, definitely not.
This isn't good guy Disney standing up for consumers. It's Disney seeing a bad article about them on CNN and doing damage control.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
Right.
Yeah. Best handheld game. I think this is an interesting category because I've got a game here that I really want to have win. You got Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World, Monster Hunter Stories, Metroid: Samus Returns, Ever Oasis, which has no fucking chance, and Fire Emblem Echoes: Shadow of Valentia. It is absolutely Metroid.
Yeah, I voted Metroid. Yeah. I mean, not that that matters, but yeah.
Yep, that's a Metroid. That's a Metroid win. What do we got? Best ongoing game, which is
a weird one. Yeah.
It's a weird category.
A great category that reflects the current market and will be more of these over time.
So here, sorry, I just have a question.
Go ahead.
So ongoing game, the one that sticks out to me is Destiny 2. It's an ongoing game, but it just came out.
It just felt.
There hasn't even been an expansion yet. Like that's kind of a weird nomination.
The assumption that it will be ongoing.
Well, then you've also got PUBG, which is still in fucking beta.
Yeah, like what are they being evaluated on for ongoing game?
But if you look at PUBG, okay, I've got some opinions on PUBG, as is everyone.
Yeah. I do too.
But the thing about PUBG is I actually think PUBG has, even though it's an early access game, has way more justification for being in that list than something like Destiny 2, which hasn't had any expansions. It's only been on the market for 2 or 3 months. The thing about PUBG is that a lot of games are in early access, but not a lot of games in early access maintain the growth that PUBG has seen over the last 8 months, right? And I think they have made some improvements. They've obviously slowed down and hit some hitches as they move towards 1.0. But if you look at the improvements and changes they've made while maintaining growth, I think it's justified.
And there's a big conversation about this, since the nominations came out, like should early access games be eligible for Game of the Year awards? But I think everyone's too hung up on the label of early access. Like just think about how complete is the game relative to what it's trying to do, right? Because lots of games come out and they're released, and they are missing far more important features than PUBG is.
Yeah.
I feel like from the time it is now till when it releases, not a ton's going to change. It's pretty close. And there's something like No Man's Sky that was technically a final release and was clearly missing a lot more important elements. So I just think I don't know. I think that's not as important as just what's in the game, and especially if the game's so good that it still gets people's attention for your game of the year, despite not even being in final release. Like, that's almost speaking in favor of it.
And it's a statement of itself, yeah.
And I hate that argument that, well, it's early. If I can buy it and play it, and I can have if the game works, it's out. If I can buy it on Steam, it's out. Like
it's out.
I'm glad we're at least all in agreement there. I know. John wasn't crazy about some of its nominations, but like as long as we're all in agreement that it makes sense that it exists in that space.
Okay, I can buy that. I can buy that.
Okay. It's such garbage. The early access label is garbage. A consumer is paying money for a product that's being delivered. That is called a transaction. That game is out. So all this bullshit about early access and it's beta, it's not. No, it's out. You can buy it. That game is released. Period. It's done.
Why even say it's in early access then? I mean, what's the point?
Because you get a break on the bugs. People give you less crap about it. That's all.
And they buy it on sale. And they buy it on sale. No, like
garbage.
PUBG will. I don't know if Steam works the same way, but like on Xbox, I think it's gonna be $30, and then once it hits 1.0, it'll cost more. I don't know if Steam's the same way.
PUBG has been $30 since it came out.
But I don't know. I mean, I have it on PC. I just don't know if the price will jump. But what I mean,
it will.
Their box versions would be the same price. So
okay. Well, I just mean like you deal with a buggier product. People are more accepting of it being a buggier product, but also like you're saving money. But that's beside the point. The game is out. You can play it, and it's sold. You know, what is it, 15 or 20 million copies now? It's out. So it's not worth being pedantic about early access being a real game. It's out.
So and it's the whole thing, like, it's unfinished. Every game's unfinished, especially online games. They're always getting patches and tweaks and fixes.
As much as I mean, that's a good point. As much as I love it, I mean, technically Final Fantasy 15 is unfinished.
Every game's unfinished until development on it stops and they start working on a sequel.
And that's because it stopped selling at some point.
So are we on agreement that PUBG takes it? Because I think it's going to take it.
Yeah.
John, for service game?
For best ongoing game, yeah.
John, can you get into what you didn't like about PUBG being nominated last?
Yeah, so it's nominated for best game. And I've got issues with that. I tell you what, let's wait until we get to game of the year. Because I do have some issues with it being there. But we'll wait till we get to game of the year to talk about that. Although
I feel like I interrupted you, Matt.
No. Dude,
so this ongoing game, it's the one category that I'm really into because you have GTA 5, you have Overwatch, you have Rainbow Six Siege, these games that people are still buying a couple of years after they're launched. I think there's a strong argument for Siege. I think there's a huge argument for Overwatch. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is a strong argument. I think this category should be like 3 or 4 categories, and I think eventually we're going to get there because games are no longer products that come in and out of the market in 12 weeks. Games are things that last 2 or 3 years. So I'm excited by the change. I think it's them really reflecting the current state of the market. I was really excited to hear Jeff say he was bringing this kind of thing here. I think it's important. Anyways, I'll stop now, but I like this category. I think it's fun. Destiny 2 shouldn't be there, though. That's dumb.
Yeah.
I agree. The fucking game just came out. Games for Impact. 2 of these I've not heard of, which are Please Knock on My Door and Bury Me, My Love. I have no idea what those are. Then you have Night in the Woods, Life is Strange Before the Storm, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Hellblade, Sunless Sacrifice. And I've got a personal stake in this because I really want Hellblade to win.
It should.
What's that, Matt?
No, it should. For everything that game did, phenomenal.
I have lived with my own form of mental illness my entire life, and the way that game handled it with the grace and the nuance that it did, you know, whenever you're playing games and you have a character that is depicted as mentally ill, like Voss Montenegro is a good example from Far Cry 3, or any psychotic villain, you know, like, oh well, he's mentally ill, he's a psycho, he's crazy, and he's a mass murderer. That is the majority of video game villains. It seems, right? They're nuts. But Senwa, from the moment you meet her, you know, she's obviously she has psychosis, and you've got these voices. You know, the voices in her head are talking to her. Some of them are mocking her. Some of them are encouraging her. And playing that game, if you haven't played it, it's a set of cans is fucking required for that game. But the way that they handled it, the way that they researched it, I mean, they didn't just bring in psychologists. They brought in actual people with schizophrenia and psychosis to talk to them and get a feel for what they go through on a daily basis. Like that is unheard of not just in the gaming industry, but I haven't heard of a movie going that in depth either. I I know more about gaming than I do movies, so I could be wrong. But the level of detail that Ninja Theory put into that, the level of care that they took in depicting that, because I mean, it could have been a disaster, right? Like that could have been a fucking shit show for them. But instead, it is the most accurate and soulful and heartfelt depiction of mental illness I have seen in the medium, and for that reason,
I mean, it's such a cool like business model for it.
It is. It really is. Plus, not just that, but look at it. It's like, I think, the first independently published AAA production?
Pretty much. I mean,
what did it retail for? 30 or 40 too? Like, there are so
like
many interesting things about that game.
$30.
Yeah.
And it's a fucking 7 to 8 hour it's one of the best
it looks
games.
As good as any $60 game on the market.
It was, I mean, visually, Brandon, I would say it was on par with Horizon.
In its own way. I mean,
it was close.
Separate scale, obviously.
Yeah, so taking scale into account, like the combat was simple, but very effective. I mean, it's Ninja Theory, and I loved Senwa as a character, and there's so many things about this game. I mean, Melina Jurgens was a fucking social media person for Ninja Theory, and this was the first time she's ever done anything like this. I mean, the game was impactful in so many ways. I cannot picture this game not winning.
And this is the genre I always feel compelled. Like, there are rarely genres when I see it and I'm like, oh, I haven't played that one, I should really get to it. But games for Impact are usually the games I try to play beforehand. because they're affordable and so it's easy to play all of them and make a judgment. But like, yeah, when I look at these games, I'm sad that I've only played Edith Finch, which was a great game, but like I feel dumb weighing in on it without playing it because I've heard good things about all of them. I mean, I probably won't do Life is Strange because I didn't play the first one and I don't really fuck with like scab labor, but like I mean, the rest of them look good. I've heard good things about Night in the Woods too. It kills me that I haven't played as many of these as I should have.
I think I don't know. I played Life is Strange, Edith Finch, and Hellblade. I didn't enjoy Hellblade that much, but I respect what it did, and I think Edith Finch is probably the best all-around game there.
Yeah, but
I still feel like I think Hellblade deserves it just because what it's doing is so unique and hasn't been done before.
Right. And Edith Finch danced with mental illness with some of the characters in it, which was good. But it doesn't tackle it as though that's not the whole.
Well, Zach, like I don't want anybody to get it twisted. Like I would be perfectly fine with an Edith Finch win, simply because the way it meshed different forms of gameplay into playing your family's memories.
Yeah.
Especially like everything from a cel-shaded first-person horror game to like a top-down isometric style RPG. And plus, the story of Edith and what happened to her and her family was just, I've never seen narrative done like that in a game before. So yeah. I would love Hellblade to win, but I would be okay with an Edith Finch win as well.
Yeah.
I want to move on to something that I know. So I know a lot of people have opinions about this category. Best performance. Melina Jurgens for Hellblade, Laura Bailey for The Lost Legacy. She played Nadine Ross. Claudia Black as Chloe Fraser in Uncharted. Brian Bloom in Wolfenstein 2 as BJ Blazkowicz. And Ashley Burch.
My pick here is obvious.
What's that?
My pick here is obvious. Brian Bloom.
I want Melina Jurgens to win, simply because this is the first time she's ever done it, and she knocked that out of the fucking park.
It was amazing, yeah.
I know the reason I bring this category up is because I know some people have issues with Laura Bailey and Claudia Black playing the characters they did.
Yeah,
and if anybody wants to speak on that, feel free to.
Yeah, and so I talked about this on Twitter, and like I don't love that this is such a homogenous group to like talking about it. But one of the big issues with I have those two nominees, and first of all, this isn't a knock on their performance because the performance in Lost Legacy is phenomenal. I just from a blanket standpoint, like I don't like to support games where white people are playing people of color because I think there are plenty of people who can represent that role who are in fact people of color.
I can understand.
I don't think that the industry should still be in this place where white people are playing people of color. And that's not to say they're not great performances, because both of those characters are great, and I understand those characters have existed in the game long before we got to the place we are now. But I don't like that as a notion.
I'm not gonna lie. When I first found out that Laura Bailey was playing Nadine Ross, it kind of threw me for a loop. I was like,
yeah, and that's the more confusing one, right? Because that was Uncharted 4, and so it was like you had some time to reflect on some of the questionable choices that were made with casting. Chloe, right? Because Chloe was cast, a decade ago, and gaming wasn't as progressive back then. So it was interesting to see that because there are plenty of people of color who can do that same job. But I don't know.
So what if we gave the award to Melina because she absolutely deserved it, but then we nominated Laura Bailey for her role in Saints Row 3, which she should have won and never did. I totally agree with your point, but Laura Bailey deserves an award for Saints Row 3.
I never played it, so I don't know about all.
Saints Row 3 is real good.
Brian Bloom is an interesting nomination. I mean, absolutely zero chance of winning, right?
I mean, can we just say that BJ has the best monologues in games?
Yeah, they're always weird because I either have to crank them way up or crank them way down because it's just very, very low and quiet. But they're always really impactful. No, I mean they're great. It's just I don't know if I would like. Sometimes his monologues border on satirical. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not gonna lie.
It's on purpose.
When I was playing Wolfenstein 2, and he repeated the first line of that line he had from the very beginning of the first game when he says he's on the plane, and this is not a spoiler. This happens the first 2 seconds of the game, but he's on the plane after killing Death's Head, and he's like, death at the gate, howling my name. In the first game he says, can't greet you today. I got a war to win. Yeah. But this time he says he's dying, and he says, death's at the gate, howling my name. Come on in, old buddy. Sorry I kept you waiting. I was like, oh god, I got me right there.
Yeah. But again, and it's not because it's not deserved, but absolutely zero chance of winning this one. But good game and good voice acting. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at any of these as far as raw performance goes. I wouldn't be mad at anything.
Yeah, I'm holding out for Melina. I need Melina to win. She fucking killed it. Yeah. We're gonna skip audio design, and I want to bring up best score in music real quick. For one reason, the nominees are Destiny 2, Cuphead, Nier, Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, and Persona 5. Where the fuck is Mario plus Rabbids?
I got a huge chip on my shoulder for this genre or this category.
Speak on it.
Well, let me pull it up again.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that Mario plus Rabbids and Grant Kirkhope's phenomenal fucking score are not a part of this category is a travesty. If you have not played Mario plus Rabbids, go play the first phase of the boss battle with Rabbid Kong and listen to the way he took the theme from Donkey Kong Country and turned it into this big epic boss battle theme. Oh, it's just so fucking good.
Wasn't it Rare's former composer, right? I want to say that was it.
Grant Kirkhope, yeah. Jeff, you wanted to speak on something. Go ahead, man.
It's just Destiny 2's music is super forgettable. I can't really think of it. It was fine, but putting it there, I think 2 games I got forgotten about because they came out last year are The Last Guardian and Final Fantasy 15. Both of those were my top 2 soundtracks for the calendar year 2016, and neither of them are on this list. And I understand that all these games have great music, but Destiny 2 is the one that jumps out to me. I feel like Final Fantasy or Last Guardian should have been on there in place of Destiny.
Shimomura, what she did with that soundtrack for 15 was phenomenal, and I stand by Final Fantasy 15 has one of the finest final boss battle tracks I've ever heard in any game. It was so fucking good. If you have the soundtrack or you haven't listened to Magna Insomnia, just go for a run and put Magna Insomnia on. It's so good. I agree with you completely, man. The only track I can think of from Destiny 2 is the one where you're escaping the city, which admittedly is pretty good. But aside from that, I could not tell you a single piece of music from that game. Not one.
They missed Marty O'Donnell, I think, for sure.
Super Mario Odyssey, I actually thought the music was the weakest part of the game.
I don't remember any tracks from it.
And Breath of the Wild, there's no fucking music in it.
Yeah. I think that's the weirdest one in my opinion.
There's no music in Breath of the Wild at all.
Okay, let's acknowledge the fact that there is music.
Okay, there's music. There's just not hardly. There's not a lot of music.
The title track is really good, and that's it. Yeah.
I don't know. Breath of the Wild's music was there, and Jesse makes a good point in chat. He says Breath of the Wild's music was just there. It didn't heighten the mood. The only time I felt that Breath of the Wild's music was really kicking in and getting me amped was in Ganon's Castle when you have that kind of dark take on the classic overworld theme. And I was like, okay, cool, this is cool. But aside from that, I was like, okay, whatever. I love the gameplay, but the music was just, whatever.
To me, that's like such an important part of at least what I think should be this category for games. Like, it's not just when you talk about best music in games, you're not just talking about throwing a CD in and listening to the track list like front to back. It's how does the music work in the context of the game? How does it make the game better?
I mean, especially with like now that we're in the age of something like Doom, like where the
right?
soundtrack is implemented so dynamically. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think for something like Persona, it really helps liven up those battles and that stuff, and the style and everything meshes together well. Same for Cuphead. Maybe same for Nier. I didn't play much of it. And I feel like, especially The Last Guardian, some of the best moments in that game when the soundtrack swells is just, and same thing with Final Fantasy 15, the main battle music. What is it?
Apocalyptus Noctis. Noctis, yeah.
Just to name one, but there's so many times in that game, even though I didn't really care for the story, the music almost made me care because.
That Apocalyptus Noctis plays whenever a summon comes in, and it really lent like this apocalyptic feel to this giant beast coming out of the battlefield, like bum 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 bum, and you're like, the summon comes out, and you're like, oh shit.
Man, I went to that Final Fantasy Symphony like with a live orchestra this year, and they played probably 5 or 6 tracks from 15, and it was just fucking heaven.
I'm so jealous, man. Spencer Allen chat says Geo is going to murder you all. He is. Don't tell him I said that about Breath of the Wild. So I was going to talk about best narrative, but we're running short on time, so I did want to touch on Game of the Year real quick. The Game of the Year nominees are Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, PUBG, which has no fucking business being there, Persona 5, and Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, it's going to be Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yep.
And my bets are on Super Mario Odyssey. I feel like it's just it's a friendlier choice for something like Game of the Year.
I feel like Zelda, like when Zelda came out, all I heard was and saw was articles about how it changed video games, how it's changing design, how the whole industry is different because of Zelda. When Mario came out, I feel like all I heard was it's an amazing Mario game.
Yeah. And it's a really weird category, right? Because Mario is a very tight game, and it is the perfect iteration on Mario, right? They've taken everything that's great and everything that's bad, and they've fixed it. It's a perfect game, but like it's not an innovative game, in my opinion. I mean, the Cappy is an interesting mechanic and whatever, but like Breath of the Wild will be an influential game.
And that's an interesting point, right? Like my son is just now getting into stuff like Zelda. Like my classic Zelda is like, A Link to the Past. Right? That is classic Zelda for me. For him, he's 9 years old. Breath of the Wild will be his classic Zelda. Like that is what he's going to grow up saying, okay, this was my first Zelda game. This was classic Zelda to me. I want to know what you guys think about PUBG being on there. Like Persona 5 is on there, Horizon Zero. I'm glad these games are there. They don't have a chance.
I think it's fine.
PUBG to me, like, it's fine. It's fun. I don't see it as Game of the Year material. Like Games for Impact, got it. I understand, even though I don't think it should win.
It is absolutely Game of the Year material.
It's the best multiplayer game I've played in years.
No,
wait, John. This doesn't take away from your opinion. Your opinion is totally valid and fine. But how much have you played of it?
So I haven't played much of it.
Okay.
Because I have a really difficult time getting it to run on my computer. What I can say is that I have played quite a bit of Fortnite, and I know they're different games, but the concept I know is the same. It's a big 100-man battle royale on a big map, and I understand in PUBG you can have vehicles, in Fortnite you don't. The art styles are different, but at the end of the day, the core concept is the same.
But so much about what makes PUBG good is the game specific to that game, which is why I wasn't that excited to play Fortnite. It's the way the weapons handle. It's the placement of the buildings and how the map moves around it. When the map gets down to that final circle and it's just on, like, I got trapped inside a building one time because the blue was on the door to exit the building and on my other side was a wall. And I couldn't fucking get out, so I had to run through. Like, it's so specific to that, even to that map. When they introduce another map, I don't know how it'll play out, but everything I feel like is so great about that game is you can't replicate it with another engine or another game.
Pretty much, I agree completely.
Like, have you watched high-level players use the sniper rifle and the drop on that bullet?
I will say some of
I tried Fortnite, and it's the little things, and they just weren't there in Fortnite, and it just felt like such a lesser game.
Yeah, and I think I tweeted this like back when Fortnite went free to play on Xbox. I played it there, the Battle Royale version.
Yeah.
I think I got about 100 hours in PUBG on my computer, and then I played Battle Royale Fortnite, and I got whatever the equivalent of chicken dinner was, like on my third game, and like I shared a screenshot of it, and I tweeted out like I feel nothing, and that's kind of how it felt. Like when you go to chicken dinner in PUBG, like there's, especially in solo, like there's this tension and this. I don't know, like I almost feel like almost on the brink of nausea in the final moments of PUBG, and like I just don't get that from Fortnite. And so, John, I think your opinion is fine. And I don't think when you talk about how janky the game is, I think that's a totally fair criticism. But I kind of think it belongs in Game of the Year.
You know, it works in the game's favor for spontaneous, ridiculous moments.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like
you can share on Twitter and you want to tell your friends about.
Well, and that's the thing. Like what I'm saying is just an opinion, right? Like that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I would like to see either Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey win because I love them.
And they will.
Yeah, and I'm sure one of them will. I want to hear from Matt. Matt, what do you think about the Game of the Year category? Like one, I think we can all agree that either one of the two Nintendo games are going to win. But what do you feel about PUBG being on there?
So, I mean, in my perspective, PUBG is an acknowledgement that games are changing, and that there's a category of game that's on places like Steam that's not your traditional gaming platforms, that is taking a very different approach to game development and attracting massive audiences both in the game and on Twitch. And I think it's really just more of an acknowledgement that things are changing. So I don't think it's going to win. I don't think it has a chance to win, but it's interesting that it's there, and only because it's this kind of group saying, hey, we're inclusive of all kinds of games, not just the traditional like console game that people are familiar with. And
I also want to just give a quick shout out to our friend, a good friend of the podcast, Steven Spahn.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. How cool was that seeing him?
Who is up for Trending Game of the Year? Please go vote for Steve. He is an awesome guy. He does a lot of good streaming work, and he also does a lot of amazing charity work for Able Gamers. I just barely missed out on the chance to hang out with him at PAX East. But please go vote for Steven. I can think of no one more deserving than Steven. All respect to people like so did I. All respect to people like Andrea Renee. I love Andrea Renee, and I love What's Good Games. But Steve is just, I mean, he is my Training Game of the Year. And I just wanted to give him a quick shout out. But anyway, I think we'll probably wrap it up here because we're at well over an hour and a half. Great discussion all around. Matt, thank you so much for joining us again, man. We just love having you on, man. Like I said, the MPD stuff is a bonus. You're just
Thanks, man. Really appreciate
it. You're just a cool guy to talk to, man. Next year, Saki will be nominated for Training Gamer of the Year.
We're getting them. We're getting there.
Or at least one of us. One of us will. I'm working on it. Zach, dude, you were a fucking pleasure to have on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. And it was great partaking in some very good discussion that got into the weeds, but like that's that good shit. No, it's good. I'm happy to be here.
Stick around after the podcast. But anyway, guys, thank you to everybody in chat for showing up and supporting us. We may be a small podcast, but we've had a large group of the same people watching us for 95 episodes now. I know everybody in chat, which is awesome, and I love having everybody here. We don't have one of those bloated chat rooms where it's like the chat moves at a nice pace, but I can still take time out to greet people individually as they come in, and there's some good conversations going on there. And everybody in chat knows each other now, which is awesome. So thank you guys for that very much.
Family.
And we do have a little SDGC family going on here. It's cool. And by the way, again, in chat, guys, if you are not part of our Discord, let me know send me a DM. My DMs are open on Twitter, and I will get you in. Not only are there some really cool people in there having good game conversations every day, the Discord is always busy, but we've also got people like Susan Art and Marcel Hatam and Anthony Agnello, industry figures in there, and you can pick their brains from there as well. They show up quite often, so a lot of cool discussion going on in there. But anyway, we'll let you guys know what's going on next week. I don't know if we're going to have an episode on Wednesday or not. It's definitely going to be Thursday, but I will keep you guys in the loop. And as always, it's not always poetry, and we don't always agree, but we always keep it real. So until next week, everybody, if we don't see you, have a happy Thanksgiving. Take care of each other and keep on gaming.